Hey you guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I want to break down some of the pros and cons of having animals and living in Arizona. So whether you're dreaming of your own homestead, looking to get animals of your own, or are hoping to make a move to Arizona but you're just not quite sure what it looks like to have animals here, then this video is for you. So let's go ahead and dive into it. So I'm going to be listing 3 pros and 3 cons, and we'll talk about them a little bit in detail. But first, let's go ahead and start with the pros of having animals in Arizona. Pro number 1 is just all the diverse opportunities you have while having animals in Arizona. For horses specifically, there are tons of different trail rides that you can take your horse on. If you're here for the winter like we are, there are just so many roping, sparrow races, rodeos, breakaway jackpots, you name it, it's here. It's insane. I'm quite honestly still blown away every time I get on Facebook and I find another roping or event to go to. There are just tons of different opportunities if you have horses to be able to utilize them. And even if you don't have horses and you're looking to start kind of your own little mini farm, obviously you can have chickens, goats, donkeys, any kind of animal you can imagine for whatever purpose you want to have them for, right? Most people want chickens to get their own eggs. Some people have goats just for fun. Other people have goats to utilize their milk and make cheese or anything like that. You just have a lot of opportunities having animals on your property. Pro number 2 is something that you might not think is that glamorous, but it's actually really, really nice. And that is that we have less mud because we are in a drier climate. Now, if you have hooved animals like we have horses, you know that a lot of times they can get abscesses and different things like that if their pens are always super, super muddy. But because we have 300 days of sunshine here in Arizona in the year, we don't have to deal with a whole lot of mud. We do have to deal with the dust, but we don't have to deal with a lot of mud. So your horses are less likely to get abscesses and things like that. And I'm not gonna lie, the fact that it's a drier climate does make it a lot easier to pick stalls on a daily basis if you have your horses in stalls like we do. You wouldn't think that it's like a glamorous thing, but it's actually super nice. And pro number 3 is easier winter care and longer riding seasons. The mild winters in Arizona are a huge game changer. Tons of people flock here every single winter because we are not about to deal with snow, ice, freezing temperatures up north. We'd so much rather come down here. I mean, that is like the number one reason why we're here personally in Arizona. Instead of breaking ice and having to blanket every single night, having my horses hair up like crazy, I would rather come down here and be able to ride them pretty much every single day and be able to enjoy them. It's just so much easier to take care of horses. If you have livestock and you've lived up north, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So the fact that we just have a mild winter and you can spend a lot more time in the saddle year round because the weather is nice, like, why would you not come here? So of course, it's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows. There are some challenges that come with living in Arizona full time. So let's go ahead and talk about those. Number 1 are the summers. I feel like you probably knew that this one was coming. It's no surprise that the summers in Arizona are absolutely brutal. They are super, super intense. And as a human, sometimes it can be hard to adapt to that. But if you have horses or other animals, you definitely have to take precautions and make sure that your property is set up to be able to house your animals during the summertime. The first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you have shade provided for your animals, whether it's a chicken coop or a goat enclosure or horse pens. You want to make sure that your animals have shade. They need to be able to get out of the sun for multiple reasons. 1, because it's hot. 2, because you don't want them to get heat stress. 3, if they're a lighter colored animal or even horses with a bunch of white on their face, they can get sunburned. So you want them to be able to get out of the sun whenever they feel like they need to. So you want to make sure that they have water in front of them all the time. Of course, you don't want them to get dehydrated and get sick or anything like that. Some people will even have fans. I've seen misters, which is a really, really cool thing. That's kind of like next level. If you want to do that, great, but I feel like if you can at least provide them shade and water, you know, that's the bare minimum. And the other thing on this first con that you need to be aware of are the monsoon storms. Monsoon season in Arizona is from June 15th through September 15th. Of course, you can have hit or miss storms before or after that, but it's a lot less common. But the monsoon storms, they roll in, usually in the evening. They can bring high winds, thunder, lightning, torrential rainstorms. So it's just, again, important that you have shelter for your animals so they can get out of that weather if they need to. Con number 2 is predators. Now, maybe if you're not used to having to deal with predators where you are now, but you're looking to move here, this is something you definitely want to be aware of. Coyotes are probably the biggest predator that you need to be aware of, especially if you have smaller animals like goats and chickens, because coyotes will find their way into your property and snag whatever animals you have. So you want to make sure that you have really solid fencing around your property, or that you have really coyote-proof pens for your small animals. Another thing you can look into to help prevent predators from getting onto your property is a livestock guardian dog. Most commonly, people will use Great Pyrenees dogs to help protect their small animals. On the backside of this property where we're staying, the neighbors have a Great Pyrenees. I've seen it back there, and they have some small animals. So something to look into if you are planning on having small animals here in Arizona. And then lastly, con number 3 is just limited grazing. So Arizona is a desert, it's no surprise. There's not lush fields everywhere. You don't have pasture just at the ready. So it's really important to take that into consideration with your animals. Just keep that in mind if you're dreaming of your little farm or ranch, and if you have horses especially, or cows, or any other animal that typically grazes, just something to keep in mind. So there you have it. Those are the pros and cons of having animals in Arizona. Let's do a quick little recap. On the pros side, you definitely have a lot more diverse opportunities to utilize your horses through trail rides, ropings, rodeos, things like that. Number 2 is that it is a dry climate, which means you have less mud to deal with, which is really helpful for hooved animals. Number 3 is easier winter care and longer riding seasons. It's just easier to take care of horses in a mild winter, and you have a lot more time of the year where you can spend outside riding. Then on the con side, number 1 is the summers and the extreme heat. You want to make sure to take precautions and make sure your animals are set up for success during those really, really hot months. Number 2 is predators. You want to make sure you set up your property to keep predators out, or take some extra precautions to make sure that you're not constantly losing animals to those predators. And lastly, con number 3 is limited grazing and hay costs. There's not a ton of lush pasture here, so those hay costs are going to add up, and you want to make sure that you budget for that. The thing about living in Arizona, and truly honestly living anywhere, is you're always going to have pros and cons. And for some people, the pros are going to outweigh the cons in Arizona, whereas someone might prefer not to deal with the extreme heat, but they'd rather deal with the extreme cold or something like that. So it's all subjective, right? For me personally, I would so much rather be here in Arizona in the winter. I would rather deal with the summer heat. I did it for 5 years when we lived here before without horses. Now with horses, that might be a different story. However, for me personally, the pros outweigh the cons of living in Arizona. For you, it might be the same, or it might not. It's totally subjective. If you're thinking about making a move to some rural property here in Arizona, please know that I am your gal. I would love to help you make that dream a reality. Thank you so much for being here, for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel and like this video. If you feel like I missed anything, or you want to see other additional content here on YouTube, please leave a comment below. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in the next video.